What two topics do you traditionally leave alone? Religion and politics, right? Well, I'm Justin Bates, and today we're going to talk about a preacher in the 1700s named Jonathan Mayhew and how his writings helped fan the flames of the future American rebellion from Great Britain. Let's get into it. Who was Jonathan Mayhew? He was a colonial-born, Boston-based preacher well known for his politically infused sermons. Historian Howard Lubert argues that Mayhew's place in American revolutionary thought centers around three sermons, namely his 1750 Discourse Concerning Unlimited Submission, which we'll talk about, an August 1765 sermon on the Stamp Act crisis, and his May 1766 The Snare Broken. We'll explore one of those today, as well as another discourse that helps us to understand Mayhew's political rhetoric, especially toward the end of his life. First off, his Discourse Concerning Unlimited Submission. This is his efforts to use religion to support rebellion. It was not so much a sermon as a small book, but was nonetheless influential in adapting or reflecting colonial American attitudes toward government. What particularly stands out about Mayhew is how he claims to derive his arguments regarding the role of government and its officers from Christian doctrine and its leaders. For example, he argues that Christ, quote, inspired apostles have laid down some general principles concerning the office of civil rulers and the duty of subjects, close quote. He goes on to explain that both those who rule and those who are ruled both have an obligation to understand and enforce these divinely established principles regarding earthly rule. For example, he states that it is, quote, equally the duty of all Christian people to inform themselves what it is which their religion teaches concerning that subjection which they owe to the higher powers, close quote. He supports using Scripture the need to subject oneself to those in civil office, as he believed that they were, on some level at least, appointed to that role by God. However, he argues that the extent of that submission is not unlimited. Through extended scriptural analysis, he concludes not in favor of submission to all who bear the title of rulers, but only to those who actually perform the duty of rulers by exercising a reasonable and just authority. And that's a quote from him. He goes on to expound Scripture to support and even italicize words like freedom and liberty in a way that would have caught the attention of frustrated colonial Americans itching for a justification to rebel against Great Britain. In short, Mayhew's exposition regarding unlimited submission served to religiously justify rebellion against tyranny. Now on to a rather unique funeral sermon. It's called a Discourse at Funeral of the Honorable Stephen Sewall. This discourse was given toward the end of the French and Indian War, which had been a taxing endeavor for the colonists and a financially devastating blow for Great Britain. Within a few short years, the Crown would begin to implement a series of taxes, such as the Sugar, Stamp, and Quartering Acts, to recoup the costs of the war. But in reality, it would just invite another. While not as overtly rebellious, Mayhew's funeral discourse for Stephen Sewall still carried political undertones that would align with brimming colonial interest in rebellion. For example, he cites the biblical story of Samuel, who recognized the wickedness of King Saul, and as a true patriot, quote, true patriot, zealous for the liberties and interests of his country, recognized when his king's behavior became intolerable and anointed a far better man to reign in his stead, close quote. By positioning Samuel, a well-known and well-beloved man of action, he cut an enemy king in half, for goodness sake, as a patriot, in spite of, and perhaps because of his willingness to remove a wicked king and place a better ruler in his stead, Mayhew continues to champion colonial interest in rebellion, revolution, and independence from their mother country. In conclusion, Mayhew helped fan the flames of colonial independence by using Scripture to define or limit submission to civil authority required by Christians, by utilizing a prophetic figure, Samuel, as a model of patriotism, and by describing and justifying rebellion in the face of tyranny. Now, Mayhew died just a decade before the American War for Independence that he had helped to foster. One has to wonder what sermons he might have produced had he lived to experience it. Regardless, Mayhew is noteworthy for his effort to prepare the soil or fan the flames of the American Revolution. Thank you.